Hi Wildcats, it's Miss Garrett, and today I'm going to be reading you the book The Encounter by Jane Yolen. This story is about a young Tiano boy and his encounter with Christopher Columbus in San Salvador in 1492. I hope you enjoy. The moon was well overhead, and our great fire had burned low. A low clap of thunder woke me from my dream. All dreams are not true, my mother says, but in my dream that night 3 great winged birds with voices like thunder rolled wild waves into our bay. They were not like any birds I had seen before, for sharp white teeth filled their mouths. I left my hammock and walked to the beach. There were my dream birds again. Only now they were real. 3 great sailed canoes floated in the bay. I stared at them all through the night. When the sun rose, each great canoe gave birth to many little ones that swam awkwardly to our shore. I then ran and found our chief still sleeping in his hammock. Do not welcome them, I begged him. My dream is a warning. But it is our custom to welcome strangers, to give them tobacco leaves, to feast with them in pepper pots, and to trade gifts. You are but a child, our chief said to me. All children have bad dreams. The baby canoe spat out many strange creatures, men but not men. We did not know them as human beings, for they hid their bodies in colors like parrots. Their feet were hidden also. And many of them had hair growing like bushes on their chins. 3 of them knelt before our chief and pushed sticks into the sand. Then I was even more afraid. Our young men left the shelter of the trees. I, who was not yet a man, followed, crying, Do not welcome them, do not call them friends. No one listened to me, for I was but a child. Our chief said, We must see if they are true men. So I took one by the hand and pinched it. The hand felt like flesh and blood, but the skin was the moon to my sun. The stranger made a funny noise with his mouth, not like talking, but like a barking of a yellow dog. Our chief said to us, See how pale they are? No one could be that color who comes from the earth. Surely they come from the sky. Then he leaped before them and put his hands up, pointing to the sky to show that he understood how far they had flown. Perhaps they have tails, said my older brother. Perhaps they have no feet. Our young men smiled, but behind their hands, so the guests would not feel bad. Then they turned around to show that they had no tails. Our chief gave the strangers balls of cotton thread to bind them to us in friendship. He gave them spears that they might fish and not starve. He gave them gum rubber balls for sport. He gave them parrots too, which made our young men laugh behind their hands all over again, knowing it was our chief's little joke that the strangers looked like parrots. But the strangers have behaved almost like human beings, for they laughed too and gave in return tiny smooth balls, the colors of sand, the sea, and the sun, strung upon a thread. And they gave hollow shells with tongues that sang, Chuka, Chuka. And they gave woven things that fit upon a man's head that could cover a boy's ears. For a while I forgot my dreams. For a while I was not afraid. So we built a great feast fire and readied the pepper pot and yams and kavalas of bread and fresh fish. For though the strangers were not quite human beings, we would still treat them as such. Our chief rolled tobacco leaves and showed them how to smoke, but they coughed and snorted and clearly did not know about these simple things. Then I leaned forward to stare into the chief's eyes. They were blue and gray like the shifting sea. Suddenly I remembered my dream and stared at each of the strangers in turn, even though with dark human eyes looked away like a dog before they are driven from a fire. So I drew back from the feast, which was not what one should do, and I watched how the strangers touched our gold nose rings and our gold armbands, but not the flesh of our faces or arms. I watched their chief smile. It was a serpent's smile, no lips and all teeth. I jumped up crying, Do not welcome them, but the welcome had already been given. I ran back under the trees, back to the place where my zenith stood. I fed it a little piece of kavasa and fish and yam from the feast, and then I prayed. Let the pale strangers from the sky go away from us. My Zemus stared back at me with unblinking wooden eyes. I gave it a smooth ball a stranger had dropped in my hand. Take these eyes and see into the heart of the strangers from the sky. If it must be, let something happen to me to show our people what they should know. My Zemus was silent. I spoke only in my dreams. Indeed, it had spoken to me already. When I returned to the feast, one of the strangers let me touch his sharp silver stick. To show I was not afraid, I grasped it firmly with one would a spear. It bit my palm so hard the blood cried out, but still no one understood, no one heard. They did not hear because they did not want to listen. They desired all that the strangers had brought, a sharp silver spear, round pools to hold in the hand that gave a man back his face, darts that sprang from sticks that sounded like thunder and could kill a parrot many paces away. We were given none of these, only singing shells and tiny balls on strings. We were patted upon the head as a child pats a yellow dog. We were smiled at with many white teeth, a serpent's smile. The next day the strangers returned in great canoes. They took 5 of our young men and many parrots with them. They took me. I knew then it was a sign from my Zemus, a sign from my people. So I was brave and did not cry, but I was afraid. That night, while my people slept on the shore, a great sailed canoe left our bay, going farther and farther than even our strongest men could go. Soon the beach and trees and everything I knew slipped away until the world was only a thin, dark line stretched between sky and sea. What else was there to do? In the early morning, another land lay close enough to see. Silently, I left myself over the side of the great canoe. I fell down, down, down into the cold water, then swam to the strange shore. Many days I walked following the sun, many nights I swam, and many times the sky was full with the moon and stars. All along the way, I told people of how I had sailed in the great canoe. I told of the pale strangers from the sky. I said our blood would cry out in the sand. I spoke of my dreams of the white teeth. But even those who saw the great canoes did not listen, for I was but a child. So it was we lost our land to the strangers from the sky. We gave our souls to their gods. We took their speech into our mouths, forgetting our own. Our sons or daughters became their sons and daughters, no longer true humans, no longer ours. This is why I, an old man, now dream no more dreams. That is why I sit here, wrapped in stranger's cloak, counting the stranger's bells on strings, telling my story. May it be a warning to all the children and all the people in every land. Now, what I want to talk about is what's true and not true in this book. It is true that Christopher Columbus did land in San Salvador in 1492, and they did exchange gifts with the people, and he did take some people back in a canoe with him, but we don't have any records of how the Taino people felt during this time, so this is not a true story. This would be a historical fiction book. But I hope you still enjoyed it, and I hope to see you all again soon. Have a good day. See ya!